Oh, we're not on yet, darn it. Tell me when. Good morning, North Brunswick. It's truly a great event today. We have our first public meeting. It's a budget meeting, but it's our first public meeting since the COVID pandemic started March 11th, when all students and staff were returned to their residence and schools were shut down by executive order of the governor. So, although the light's at the end of the tunnel, we're not there just yet, so we've taken some precautions, some socially distant precautions. We have our full board here. We're going to open up a meeting. We have an exciting swearing in of our newest board member. As you know, Miss Tracy Rubin moved as she's moving on to another community, and we had to replace her seat with Dr. Patel. We're looking so forward to that swearing in, which will be the first thing we do before we get to the budget presentation. But on behalf of Ms. Gonzalez, Gloria Gonzalez, our board president, I will be starting the meeting, calling it to order, because we're trying to eliminate passing of the mics and non-socially distant practices. So without further ado, I would ask our Assistant Business Administrator, Ms. Rosa Hock, to call the meeting to order.
We all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Hock, roll call.
Yes. Mr. Brockman. Mr. Brooks. Mr. Duran-Harris. Here. Thank you, Mr. Duran-Harris. Ms. James.
Let me just say, Miss James is voting here, and she's electronically connected to us.
Thank you. Ms. Keith. Here. Thank you. Good morning. Mr. Ligori. Here. Thank you. Good morning. Ms. Toth. Here. Thanks again, and good morning. And Ms. Gonzalez. Here. Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Hock, and good morning, board members and community members. And board members, this is the first time I think we've been together since last March, so albeit we've been together virtually, but it's great to see everyone in person, and hopefully everyone remains well and their families are safe and well. Ms. Gonzalez has allowed me to read her statement. Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. I will read the board president's statement. New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Law, the public notice of this meeting, which included the time, date, and location, was distributed by 3 p.m. on Wednesday, March 17, 2021, in the following manner. It was posted on the bulletin board reserved for announcements in the board office on Old Georges Road, mailed to the Home News Tribune, Sentinel, and the clerk of the Township of North Brunswick, delivered to, at that time, the 8 elected board members. So we do have our notice. We're ready to go. And with that, the most exciting part, as we swear in our newest board member, Ms. Hock, I'll turn it over to you and Dr. Patel and your family. We have some space here for you, right? We're going to be up here?
Yes, we are. I'm going to let them go first.
Okay.
Dr. Patel, I'm going to, if you could face me, because I'm going to try to keep our 6 feet apart. And if you could put your hand on your Bible. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to witness this. I, Dr. Patel, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people. So help me God. I, Dr. Patel, do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
for the office of member of a Board of Education,
for the office of a member of the Board of Education,
and that I am not disqualified as a voter
that I am not disqualified as a voter
pursuant to New Jersey law,
pursuant to New Jersey law,
nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime
nor disqualified due to the conviction of a crime
or offense listed in New Jersey law,
or due to the offense listed in New Jersey law,
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly,
faithfully and justly
perform all the duties of that office
and perform all the duties of that office
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me
So
God.
help me God.
Congratulations. Welcome to the board. And so I'm going to walk, and then you'll come behind me.
Congratulations, Dr. Padel. That is great having your family here. Thank you for that. And you now are duly sworn in and official member. So we appreciate your commitment to serving on this board. I just want the record to show that Mr. Brooks is here. He told me he was socially distancing, and you didn't hear him, Ms. Rahak. So he is here. So we have a quorum, and Mr. Brooks is in the house. I just want everyone to know. And before we get started, I do want to say thank you to all of the staff. There's a lot of coordination, logistics, setting up the auditorium. Mr. Misrell, thank you for you and your staff and out there working. Mr. Toro, our men in the back, thank you for the technology setup here early. I do want to welcome Councilwoman Ms. Guadagnino here. Thank you for always supporting us and being here. And of course, I want to welcome our MBTEA president, Ms. Beth Pasner. Thank you for being here on a Saturday, leaving your children to come here. Thank you, Beth. Or maybe that was a treat. I don't know. And of course, we have all our members, and I don't want to, I'm missing a few, but our cabinet will be here discussing this budget. So we're going to get started. We have a quorum. It's a really exciting time. We look forward to this Saturday morning because it's a full year of hard work. We get the governor's announcement, but by the time the governor announces how much North Brunswick qualifies for state aid, we have already been working on budgets with our staff, our principals, our supervisor. Ms. Hawk's department collects it with Ms. Shiroka's department. Our assistant superintendent, Ms. Rumbo, collecting with personnel, going through the numbers, working the budget. And all of this, today is a preliminary budget hearing that the board must accept so we can send this budget to the county, which is representative of the DOE, and they'll examine us again through our budget process. And then sometime, we believe it's going to be late April and early May, the requirement is to do a final budget presentation. Now, typically, there is no difference. Whatever the board votes on today, either it's yay or nay. When we go to the final, the reason we have to have a second hearing and a final presentation is to let the public know it passed the scrutiny of the DOE, that we made the compliance factors that they set forth. Because we have caps within our budget. Not only property tax caps for setting up the revenue, we have administrative caps, the cost per pupil per administrative. And it's regionalized, and it's capped, even though we're well below it, you can only go up 2%, not to the maximum of your region. So there's a lot of little subtleties in our budget that they'll go through. They'll make sure that overtime isn't budgeted less than 10% of the original budget lines for custodians. I know everyone will think, what? Well, that's what happens. We have a lot of compliance factors that we go to the DOE. So that is why there's a second meeting for those who are not sure why this is only called a preliminary hearing, but a very important one, because good morning, Anthony. So we will say, we'll get started. So when you hear about the second budget meeting coming in May, why didn't we just have a budget meeting? Yes. And remember, with the fiscal year, July 1st, students September 1st, we do a pretty good job of projecting what is needed, what we have to do to get ready to educate more than 6,500 children with more than 1,000 staff members. So, without further ado, we want everyone to know our comeback is going to be greater than a setback. It has been a setback. It has been a trial. It has been a challenge. But I want to thank all those staff members who went above and beyond, who continue to go above and beyond to help us get through this pandemic educational environment. Oh. I want to move around, but COVID is not letting me. So we never begin any presentation without grounding ourselves in our core beliefs. Core beliefs that were created by feedback from our staff, our community, in a strategic mission that we've done many years ago. And we've lived up to each and every core belief. And when we hire someone, they have to sign on to these core beliefs, or they're not going to be in North Brunswick Township Public Schools very long. And what are the core beliefs? All means all. All students need to have an opportunity to learn in a safe and secure environment. We believe in high expectations, professionalism, instruction, and student outcomes. When we achieve, we're happy, but we always say, how can we get better? Because we believe in high expectations, and we believe all children are entitled to exceptional education based on their needs, characterized by a challenging and differentiated curriculum delivered by a highly qualified staff. All students need exceptional education, all, based on their needs and their presence where they are. That's the beauty of a diverse district, but is also the challenge of a diverse district. We accept that challenge, and many staff members accept that challenge, but those who don't, they're not long for North Brunswick, and we're okay with that. We wish them well, but they have to accept that challenge. And we believe in diversity. It's our strength. It's not our roadblock, it's our strength. And the education of all our children is collaboratively responsible, is a collaborative responsibility of home, school, and community. We call it the perfect match, right? The triumvirate. Home, school, and community. So these are non-negotiable core beliefs. We also believe, and I know Mr. Ligori's laughing right now, I can see him under his mask, because he's been chair of finance, and he came on in 2007 as a board member. And when I had my first presentation of the budget, this scale was there, and it will always be there if they allow me to make budget presentations. Why? Because we have to acknowledge our educational integrity, what we're doing, how we're going to educate our diverse student body within a wonderful community. But we cannot, and we will not, back down from our fiscal responsibility. That's not acceptable. Our board members are elected to maintain that schools are run well, fiscally, physically, and instructionally. It's a very big responsibility, which we all take very seriously. And that's why that scale's there to remind us that we just can't do things that are just with blinders on, because we owe it to our community. We owe it to our staff, our students, but it has to be balanced. So I think people will say, it's 8 o'clock, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, Dr. Z. We only want to hear what the tax is going to be, so get going, and so we can leave the program. So I'm going to start with this, and we're going to finish with this, and I'm here to project the 21-22 budget. We call it, fancy term, FY22. It's amazing, 22. Sounds like a space novel. Our tax levy increase, that's our general operating budget. It's a 0%. Zero. No new tax. The state allowable, where they say North Brunswick, you can raise it 2% of your tax levy, is $1.7 million. We are not raising it. This will be the first time in 15 budget presentations in North Brunswick that we're doing that. Zero. Complete zero. Why? It's been an unprecedented year. And unprecedented means like never before. And we've lobbied hard, and Trenton has heard this board as we lobbied for more funding coming from Trenton. Why? Because North Brunswick was underfunded and overtaxed. So with those two chips that we were able to continue to lobby, we are receiving enough aid that we do not have to increase our budget through the tax process. So it's $0 per month, which equates times 12 for all the mathematicians, is 0 for the year. And I know everyone say, I know Dr. Z, but wait till we get hit with the new middle school. Well, the board has been paying for the new middle school since 2016. And you'll see when we get to promises kept, this board made a promise. Yes, we projected 4% interest, 30-year loan. But the promise was that's the worst case scenario. We got a 25-year loan with 2.4% interest, and we have not charged one single dollar to the taxpayers, so we've budgeted those incremental increases paying off a new state-of-the-art middle school, 7th, 8th grade, including the work that's being done at Linwood with the new early childhood center and the board offices. Can we get that microphone? I think there's a radio up there. Is there a reason or? Okay, so that is called a debt service tax levy, and we'll show you in the budget. That's like paying your mortgage. You sign on a mortgage, you got to pay it every month, every year. Same thing here. There's no increase there. So when you get your tax statement, you only get one tax increase based on the schools. What's been mortgaged and the annual budget. So together, it's 0. Some districts will say no tax on the general fund, and then they tax you for the buildings and your debt service. 0 is 0. So we started with that. So how do we get there? What is this budget all about? Are we forgetting about the district? Remember the scale. We worry about our community. We worry about our families. We also worry about the educational integrity. We also have a legal responsibility to take care of our school, not only our wonderful children and their programs, but we have set over the last 15 years a series of strategic plans, roofing plan, curriculum plan, technology plan. We have continued to look at a maintenance plan, operational plans, transportation plan. So we continue. This doesn't happen overnight. So when we got hit by a pandemic, we were ready. This board was ready to act and respond without loss of too much and too many things that we are taking for granted, like technology, transportation. When the prices and the costs went through the roof, we were ready to go. And then when we had no schools, what about Wi-Fi and internet and computers and upgrades and switches? Well, we're almost there. I think the only problem we have right now, every teacher and every student has a computer, is what we call the logjam of bandwidth. And we have in our plan to increase bandwidth. Our teachers are very understanding, but here's the problem. We can't get anybody to do the work right now, to come out and increase it and do a project. They told me they're too busy in this world of pandemic with Wi-Fi requests. I don't understand what's going on here. But it is a challenge, but it's not a challenge that we weren't ready for, because if you react, then it's a challenge. Being a proactive, budgeting, we've been able to do roof work without going out to referendums. We've been able to do a new turf field and 2 turf fields and ball fields, chemistry labs and engineering labs, and fixing the property around schools. We're doing it through solar and innovative operational design, but it was strategically planned. The board members, they meet a lot. Every standing committee, 7 standing committees plus a public board meeting meets once a month. And this is the work that we do. So we are ready to go and accept and answer our greatest challenges. But first and foremost, I put this in red. I want to make a statement that charter schools we have no ill will to our families and students that go to charter schools. It's legal. They're in our community. what our problem and our challenge is related to funding of charter schools. I want everyone to know it's a duplication of resources. Numerous letters have been written by the board, hearings from the board, I've been before Mr. Bush, Superior Court, with representatives of challenging the duplication of resources, the funding of charter schools. If a child in North Brunswick goes to a charter school in another county, they're still our child. They're still our resident. We're still responsible and connected, and we wish them well. We wish the families well. So I want families to know we're not degrading or telling people they can't have a choice and we're going to fight it. We're fighting for the funding. So we're not at odds. We're not duplicating resources. More to that, but it's a great challenge. As I shared with you, when Mr. Ligori, back in 08, 09, we were putting $500,000 to take care of charter school costs. 08. You'll see in a couple minutes the chart from 2015 to just 2021. It's up to $7.2 or $3 million. So as we have fought for our funding in North Brunswick public schools, it's been, compromised by this way we're funding charter schools. We've written our assemblyman, and I want to thank Assemblyman Danielson, who continually calls my office and asks that stop complaining. What are some solutions? And we said, there are some solutions. So we're trying to work together, and hopefully we can work with the charter schools because they're all our children. But we also want to make sure that the taxpayer is not paying twice. Because right now, the taxpayers are paying twice. And so remember the scale. We care about our kids, our families, but we can't pay twice for the same services offered here in a comprehensive, accredited public school. And of course, you're hearing a lot about learning loss. Yes, it's regression. Our teachers, we like to say learning gaps because we don't want to go into and say learning loss, like our teachers, our program hurt students. The pandemic environment has hurt students because it's just a compromise. And there's learning gaps where students should be. There's mental health issues from not only our youngest and oldest students, but our staff and our families because of this pandemic. It was a major initiative before the pandemic. It didn't go away. It just took a back seat. And now we think it's going to be even greater. So if you've been reading the research and reading the commentaries and you've seen how families are reacting, they had enough of this pandemic, and it's pressurizing, and everyone's situation is very different. So it's really causing a problem, and we know that. And SEL stands for social and emotional learning, and we know not having our schools and children all in and doing what we do best, engaging children within a big school, appropriate age level, we know children are missing a big component. And you can hear all the pundits and people from the worst case that we're never going to recover to the best case that many districts and many children will recover because of their resiliency. That's why the title of this budget presentation is Our Comeback Will Be Greater Than Our Setback. And you'll hear here in this budget, we're making plans for that with a zero tax increase. And so what are our security plans are bilingual, closing that gap. We have many families. We're working hard so we know the intelligence of these children, but we got to make sure there's no barriers like language. Special ed services, we have a great special ed department. You'll hear from Mr. Harry today about that. And what do we mean? Why do I say great? Because we know families' feedback. Yes, there's some families that we are working with because they want things different, but I'm here to say we had in 2007, when I walked into this district, 125 students going out of district. Mr. Harry, I think you were telling me we're at 26? 26. Why? Remember our core beliefs. All means all. We want all our children, because we could do it better. They're part of our educational family. Children, any needs should be in our buildings, unless, of course, we can't provide it. And so there are some cases we can't. We want safe transportation. if you know anything about what's going on with transportation, the companies are really having a hard time prior to COVID hiring people, getting people that are willing to drive buses. Now it's been exacerbated. And you will see the cost of transportation is going through the roof. It's a business. So that's a big challenge. Our facilities, our tech plan, our professional development, curriculum plan, enhanced strategic plan. You can see 2021, we're at the end. Typically, we'd have been meeting for about 8-9 months already. So our challenge, and we'll make provisions, is to enhance our strategic planning. It's very important to get our plan has been reworked. We always look at a strategic plan. If we were traveling to California and we made a roadmap and said, here we go, we'll have to get off for gas. We'll take another exit because of traffic. We may have a bathroom break. So it's never a straight line, right? We may have to break for weather. We might be tired. Kids are acting up in the back of the car. We may have to take a break. That's what strategic planning is like. It's reviewing, reevaluating, tweaking, changing, but keeping the end game in mind. So we always begin with the end in mind strategically. Where do we want to be? But of course, the devil's in the detail when you have to look on how you get there. And you have to do it strategically. That's the planning, because we got finances. We got fiscal commitments. You can't, that's great to have plans, but are you going to be able to fund it? Are you going to be able to sustain it? Are you going to be able to train people to continue to high quality? It's great to have programs, but if they're not maintained to the highest level that you're projecting and the outcomes are not matching, well, something needs to be tweaked. And that's that detour sometimes we take. More to come on that. And of course, the other challenges are parallel paths. You're seeing a great new middle school, but we mentioned in 2016, our commitment wasn't just building a new structure, it wasn't just adding to existing structures, it was enhancing all of our schools, all of our programs simultaneously. That is why we enhanced all of our schools' ability with technology prior to the pandemic, all of our lighting through the solar project, so the taxpayers didn't have to pay a dime to enhance our lighting, our unit ventilators here at the high school, millions of dollars. We were able to do that through a solar ESIP project because we were getting rebates, we were getting positive cash flow to pay for anything we do to improve. It's a great model to, again, to help us balance that scale so we didn't have to go out, like many districts do, to replace boilers, to replace roofs, to replace a lot of the maintenance when you have more than now 8 buildings that you're caring for. More than 1.5 million square feet of property and buildings. So the parallel path idea is you work simultaneously. You don't forget everything else because you're building a new building. Maintaining, improving simultaneously while you're building new structures and you're increasing and you're improving the organizational design. What's the organizational design? Our 5th graders are no longer in K-5 schools. They're at the Linwood School. They got content specialists. It's not fair to ask an elementary teacher to teach all of the content in one room every day and do it with the highest level of commitment and understanding for the standards. It's just impossible. Anybody have that expertise. But in 5th grade now, our students are meeting with content specialists, math, science, history, and all of the core subjects. Coding, those electives that you heard we had on, we'll hear on Wednesday night when Mr. Ligori gives when Mr. Brooks gives the curriculum report, all the wonderful programs that we're doing to enhance our 5th graders, meeting the standards that when I was in 7th, 8th grade, that's what the standards were. Now it's in 5th grade. So it allows our K-4 programs to flourish. It allows them to have the pre-K students in their buildings. So we have changed our design. Our 7th, 8th grade, North Brunswick Township Middle School Raiders, because it's an extension of this building. Our learning academies, our business academies, our soon-to-be performing arts academy, our broadcasting, social media, we want them doing it by 7th grade so they're ready for the high school and the wonderful opportunities we have in this building. So it's alignment. It's having that organizational alignment. So that's our challenges. And I want to go back to the charter school, and this is just, again, I want to remind everyone, this 7.9, I said 7.2 or 3. The total is 7.4. You can see it was 5.2. That's $2.2 million increase. It's 2.3 counting transportation. And you can see back in, okay, just as we have a couple of years, 18, 19, it was 3.8. I'm here to share with you, in 08, it was $500,000. So you can see how impactful. Again, I'm doing it by total cost because it's the funding, not the choice factor where families to choose to go to where they want to go. They're public schools. You can see Somerset County, the most expensive. Somerset County. It's a school in Somerset County. Yes, that's our problem. We said funding another school in Somerset County with Middlesex County and North Brunswick specific revenue. There's a problem there. And by the way, every board member here was elected. Dr. Patel was appointed. She'll be elected if she decides to run. But everyone's elected. Their boards are appointed. You have no idea who sits on their boards. The public has no representation yet. Duplication of the funding. Again, the funding. So what's the tax levy? What did North Brunswick, what could North Brunswick expect if we weren't funding other schools we had no connection to? We have no say. Well, that's $2.2 million. We were prepared to give every family a tax decrease. That $2.2 million on the average assessed home, which is $160,000 at 48%. Remember, North Brunswick evaluates at 48%. We're not going to do a assessed valuation lesson and what they do, but 160 sounds low because it's less than half of what this home is worth and valued. But at your assessed home, it would have been $11 per month decrease. And that's why we're upset, because this funding, we're working hard to help families who are struggling, educate our children. We know how costly good public schools are. To do it twice, that's the problem. So we just want to make that known to everyone. So here's our budget, $13 million for the public to understand. Big view. If I was teaching a business class, these are not straight credits and debits, but it's an understanding of the big picture. So you can see, here's in costs. With our pension, because of PERS and requirements and FICA, Social Security and health benefits, that's pretty good at $650,000. Just understand, with 1,100 employees, our premiums are $18 million. Labor contracts, we have 1,000 plus students. This is everyone's. $2.6 million is the increase, just contractual increase. No, Ms. Pasner, the $2 million of that 2.6 is not my contract. I just want everyone to know. I can see her figuring it out in her head now. Just kidding. Our increased labor. The $1.7 million are new bodies. We had some cuts due to the pandemic. We're restoring most of those positions that were already approved. We're bringing them back, and some additional, and you'll hear that from Ms. Rumbo in a few minutes. And our technology, it's $400,000. It's probably a lot more than that, but through grants and COVID and CARES grants, ESSER they call them funds, we've been able to take care of some of the other technology costs to continue to build our program. Our debt service, that's the $900,000 that we are taking care of, so there's zero payment, zero tax to the taxpayer. Charter schools, there's that $2.2 million. Transportation costs, 1.2, and that's conservative. We're out to bid. We haven't had the bids yet, so we're holding our breath. Now, our preschool costs, oh my God, Dr. Z, $1.4 million increase. You will see the grant covers those increases. We'll come over to the other side. Capital projects, $2 million. You will see how we take care of that as well. And our special ed, ESY, maybe a little higher than that. But we have a lot of grants, and we want to thank Mr. Harry. You'll hear about him as we were able to procure more money. And why is special ed costs, you seem to go high? We're strictly regulated. We're strictly regulated. You don't get to see cost avoidance on this sheet. What is cost avoidance? If we didn't have programs that Mr. Harry set up, that plus would be $2 million, not $450,000. Because we educate children better here for special ed at 1/3 the cost if we send them out. That's just the facts. So you don't see cost avoidance, but so it's $13 million increased cost, big picture. How do we get that? Oh, 0 for tax levy? Did I mention the tax levy is going to be 0? I might have mentioned that. State aid, we were able to get $8.7 million in additional aid based upon 2 factors. How we run the schools efficiently, they call it adequacy, and the over-tax burden called paying their local fair share. Our taxpayers have paid more than their local fair share. That is why this $900,000 in commitment goes back to the taxpayers. So, for example, many years ago, when Ms. Gonzalez and Ms. Cortez sued the state and said, we want our local fair share, yeah, they put their name on a lawsuit, taking on New Jersey. I don't know if it scared them, but it scared me when they signed it. They were mad that day. However, they did say, what does it mean, local fair share compared to adequacy? We were $33 million short. 22 in spending and 11 million in local fair share. So we have made a commitment to 2/3, 1/3. We give everything we get back, 1/3 to the community, and we take the other 2/3 and put it forward. Again, without the charter schools, it would have been a lot easier, and that's why we'd had a tax holiday reduction instead of 0. Our enterprise programs, $100,000. We're enterprise. We work through our cafeteria service. We make money. We put it back into the program. That's the law. Our child care, our busing services, if we make any money, our facilities, it goes back into the budget to the taxpayers. That's the law. They're outside the regular operating budget, and you run them like a business, but you're accountable to put it and reinvest it. You got to have 0 balances. You can't carry balances and hoard the money. So we're putting back $100,000. Our ESSER 2 grant, there's been ESSER 1, there's ESSER 2, and we're anticipating ESSER 3. That's elementary, secondary Student Emergency Relief Act. That's ESSER. We got a lot of acronyms. I'm even learning that one. All I know is positive for our children. So we put $850,000 of that grant across. It's very intentional. It's very prescriptive. So we just can't take that $850 and put it towards staff. It doesn't go. Only qualified staffing programs. So we've been able to do that. So we don't get hit with the recurring costs in future budgets. And we go, uh-oh, we're in trouble now. You put it towards those one-time programs, enhancement programs, ESY, extended school year. We're going to have programs for students that may need it as we are suffering through this pandemic, that learning loss. You'll hear a little bit. And our preschool grant. We're now at $5.1 million. It's from 3.7 to 5.1. So all you're seeing is 1.4 additional. So when you saw this here on this side, it's being picked up through a grant. Again, I want to thank Ms. Hawk, Ms. Nicosia, Ms. Rumbo, Ms. Shiroka. Only 4 or 5 years ago, I said to Ms. Shiroka, the state gave us a form, and one of the things we were moving towards was building a new early childhood center. We were working in Milltown. We'll be at a Milltown by the end of this fiscal year, and moving towards September opening of our new ECC, which is right in Linwood, and all paid for, and tax holiday with that, because it's all part of the new middle school project. And Ms. Shiroka said to me, the date on the letter for this application says October 1st. It's December 1st, and it's due within 7 days. I said, you're lucky it doesn't say it's not December 7th. So she spent a couple midnight meetings and all-nighters, got people together, got some partners together, Accelero and Lightbridge. Why? Because we don't have enough space. We didn't have enough space at the time. And it started with $1 million, $1.4 million. Then it's up to then $2 million, now 3.7 last year, now 5.1. So every child who qualifies, who can go into a lottery to get free full-day preschool. We're at 80%. We're building more. We're working with the township, looking for space. Exciting news coming so we could get to 100%. And it's not just preschool that will close the gaps and make this community even greater and our students even better. It's high-quality preschool. The literature is there. It's not what people think babysitting. I hear people say, you're getting $5.1 million for babysitting? No. We get $5.1 million to run a high-quality preschool, early childhood. So when they get into kindergarten, which we have a full-day kindergarten, many districts didn't have that. They are getting there now. We're full-day since 2008. We won't have the disparity of learning where some are reading, kindergarten children are reading at a second grade level, and some can't, due to not having any experience in education, can't recognize sight words or letters. So that preschool grant, and of course, transportation fees, we do everything we can to offset, and Mr. Keener does a great job working with preschool providers and having them pay for us to do work with them through various transportation opportunities. And we'll hear more from Mr. Keener. So that plus 100,000. So that's how we balance the big challenges. I won't read everyone, but we don't forget our fiscal responsibility. Conservation, cooperative purchasing, retirement. So what happens? We invest less and we hire those less that cost us less for our many staff. Our staff benefit contributions. It's a big part working with our staff. The rumor is that staff members, they get free benefits. No, they contribute more than $2 million as a staff to offset our benefits. We have partially self-funded benefit structure and more news to come on that and I want to thank our negotiating team. We have great news as we start going towards wonderful insurance news and improving that, providing continuing that high level of benefit care, but looking for cost saving to do it more efficiently. So that'll be a separate announcement. We're working towards that, but that helps us balance the budget. So when districts are restricted because benefits go up 10, 15%, think about going up 10, 15% on 18 million. We're not. We're able to balance it because of quality control, quality care, and I think forward thinking. So we'll talk more about that another time. Our training led by Mr. Soroka, how we were able to do all of our training for less and do more for less. Enterprise program, as I told you, we run it like a business. We reinvest into the schools. Our lobbying efforts, our increased ratables, thank you, community of North Brunswick. Our increased ratables has helped our budget. It went up even in a pandemic. How does it help our budget? If you have 4 hours, I'll be glad to give a lecture on ratables. But the same house that you live in, that you supported last year's budget, is valued more, so you have to give less. It's adjustment of rates. Everyone has to give less. So our budget actually, if you give the same, is worth more. Appropriation of reserves, incremental strategic planning. Increasing grant funding, as you see. Appropriation of increased aid towards that debt. And absolute zero increase on the budget. Zero means zero. So, personnel, I know we're not going to get a standing ovation. Typically, I do when I say I'm going to take a break and turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent in charge of personnel, Miss Amy Rumbo. Miss Amy, are you going to come up here, or you going to come up here to this mic? I'll sit back here, and we can. You can use that mic, and if someone else has to use it, they can take it. You got your amplifier, so see if... I'll stop. Mr. Toro, can you hear Miss Rumbo?
Can you hear me? Okay, great. Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Rumbo. I'm currently serving as the interim assistant superintendent in charge of personnel. I'm also the director of accountability and special programs. So one of the first things that we really wanted to highlight is, as Dr. Zakowski mentioned, that restoration from last year's budget that got cut due to COVID. So we are looking at restoring. Currently, we have an interim assistant principal that is technically a dean. We're looking to restore that assistant principal back at the high school level. We're looking to restore the position of a K-12 health
phys ed supervisor, and again, this was needed, this has been needed, it still is needed, especially, especially after we went through this past year. Bilingual ELA teacher at the high school, and we're also looking to restore the ESL traveling teacher. And as Dr. Zakowski mentioned, one of our greatest challenges is serving our increasing bilingual English as a second language learner students in our community. So we're really excited to be able to bring those back. We're also going to bring back a counselor for the middle school, grant funded.
Let me just say, we didn't have it grant funded, but I want to thank Ms. Rumbo and his team that as we brought it back, we restored it with grant funding that made it available and appropriate. So we use that.
And again, with that DREAMS program and it being grant funded, again, we're looking to address those learning gaps. So we're really happy to be able to not only restore the position that was cut, but again, to grant fund it, as Dr. Zakowski said. 2 other additional positions that we typically contract out, we are able to grant fund. Elementary, and 1 full-time and 1 part-time elementary and district UBHC therapists and psychiatrists. Again, this is a partnership with Rutgers University Behavioral Health Care. So again, as we talked about those social emotional learning needs of our students, and again, the health needs of our students as well. This is, really needed, and we're glad that we're able to also grant fund that. I'm sorry, did you want to talk about the Aquatics Director again? I know it's been a year, so.
We had it in there, we were all set to go. Many schools, districts don't have a pool in their high school. And we teach first aid courses and certifying lifeguarding, and it's a wonderful having that pool. We have great plans to improve that pool, working with the township it's a community use. But one of the things we needed to do is have someone there. It's a large investment that could connect our learning opportunities. We are looking forward to some of our special needs students getting access during the school day in the pool. For example, for children with autism, one of the horrible statistics that many of them die unnecessarily because they don't know how to swim. So we're going to work with this aquatic director. He or she will be teaching. In that, connecting the opportunities with the community. Our community senior citizens use it. Our community rec program uses the pool. So it's a long overdue program that we had in. It was fully approved, but we decided to hold back because of the funding cuts from COVID.
And I can also say, as a former graduate here who took swimming here, I won't say how many years ago, it's really exciting that we are able to bring this position back. It has so much potential, and it is really going to really make North Brunswick High School, which already is, and the North Brunswick School Township and the community, the district, really stand out there. Instructional coaches, we had to pull back on them due to the cuts from last year. We are excited that we will be able to restore them for next year, and they will still remain partially grant funded. I had originally, ready for the projected grants for next year, have included those in that budget. We are looking, we pulled back on a nurse clerk for Linwood, and again, serving over 900 students. As we're looking at full-time and in-person again, we are going to need bring back that nurse clerk. Same thing, we pulled back on the building aides because we weren't having kids come in or as many kids come in, so we're excited to restore that, along with secretaries district-wide in our buildings. It's like I knew.
So do people and with COVID, we thought it was the best way to wait because we had to cut funds, and now we just restored those positions. And so, believe it or not, we eliminated 6 secretarial positions. We're bringing back 4 because some of the people who did the work were doing it so well that we're saying we don't need 2 for the price of 1. So we'll work with 4 restaurate, and 2 of them are going to central office because of retirement and consolidation, and 2 are going to, I believe, at Linwood and a new middle school.
And then also we pulled back on additional custodial staff, especially as we opened up the new middle school and restructured Linwood, again, because of the cuts and this amount of students that weren't going to be there. So again, we'll be bringing all those back. So when we look at new proposed, and that's just our restoration, so we're so excited to be able to bring those back. And we're looking at new proposed for the coming school year of our certificated staff. Notice how much of this is grant funded, which is really exciting. Again, with the expansion of our pre-K program, and again, as Dr. Zakowski said, we're getting to at 80%. We are almost at 100% of what is considered our universe of serving our district children with full-day preschool. We need another nurse as we expand. We are required as part of the grant to have a specialist teacher now that we've expanded to 80%, an additional, and also an additional intervention and referral specialist teacher. We are looking to increase in that preschool grant budget 7 teachers. And again, as I said, this is all funded.
Ms. Rumbo, how much, 7 teachers, an INRS specialist, a
How much would
pre-K
that cost us?
area, how much, and a pre-K nurse as required, how much is it going to cost the taxpayers through their taxes?
0.
So I want to thank our folks of writing these grants, meeting the needs of our expansion, and sending it out and getting the state saying we're committed to funding these positions. So I want to thank them. 0 to the taxpayers, all coming, flow through right to the district. This is in addition to the $8.7 million state aid. This is a grant aid. So that's that part of that $5.1 million. Thank you. I just want to highlight that because I know how hard all of you work to make this happen.
Thank you. We are looking at 2 dual language teachers. Several years ago, we started a dual language program at Parsons and at Livingston Park, and we are going into 3rd grade already for next year. We started it with kindergarten, so we will now have at both of those buildings, kindergarten first, 2nd grade already has dual language, and we are going to be implementing for 3rd grade next year. Our Road to Success teacher at the high school used to formerly be the Ombudsman program and contracted it out. As Dr. Zakowski said, we can do it better, and we've been, and now with a new Road to Success teacher, we are able to also grant fund that through some of those learning loss grants right now, so we're really excited about that. Again, we are, our programs, our special education programs that Mr. Harry will talk about shortly, are expanding, and we are looking to increase with one autism teacher at the high school and also a learning disabilities teacher consultant. Again, we are keeping our students, all of our students, as many as we can in district. So again, very excited to bring that on. Other certificated, a lot of these are just stipended. These aren't full-time positions the way you think, like 8 to 4. These are typically outside of the contractual hours. We're looking at, again, grant funded through the pre-K grant. Because we've expanded, we need another parent involvement specialist. We're looking at expanding grade level leaders. We have expanded our pre-K to our elementary schools as well. So we need, what we look at is these are teacher leaders that help with professional development, curriculum writing, things like that, and help with all the teachers at the pre-K level. We are looking at introducing 3 STEM-based elective courses, and they will all be, grant funded as well. And that is built in through the Title I grant as the middle school, and Linwood are Title I funded. A specialized reading class, our numbers are increasing at the middle school, so we are looking to institute a 6th teaching period there. American Sign Language, we started it this year, and again, due to some, COVID rearrangements, we're looking to put that back in next year as just a partial. 2 assistant coaches, this is a 4-year plan. This is year 4. 2 assistant varsity coaches for soccer. And again, new after-school clubs expanded at Linwood and the middle school. And the middle school ones, again, can be grant funded. They are going to be STEM-based. Non-certificated, again, nothing has shown us more in this past year. And as Dr. Zakowski said, building those parallel paths in terms of technology or infrastructure, we are looking to add 1 lead technician next year. With the grant, we have more teachers, we have more students, we need more classroom aides. So those will all be grant funded. Again, as the autism program expands at the high school with that additional teacher, we are required to have 2 additional 2 autism aides. And then lastly, we haven't had recess at Linwood. 5th grade is required to have recess by the New Jersey Department of Education.
Yep. state requirement. Now they're fifth grades, used to be in the elementary schools, now they're in Linwood. This is all, they're 2-hour positions. And look at all those positions. If you needed a position, you want to apply for it, we have it online.
Yep.
Go online. We need help. We need people who are committed to work, maybe want to work with children. It's great environments. It's hard work, but it is certainly rewarding work. We're very happy that, again, we're able to restore and build using grant money, using funds that we knew that if we're going to continue to build programs, we had to make sure we could sustain them and we could budget appropriately. And all of these are very, very appropriate plans and part of our strategic plan. I want to say that we could go in all day about this. So I made a commitment to the board and my staff that although we haven't had an official tour and a ribbon cutting ceremony for the new school and a new wing and a new ECC, we will when we get through this COVID. But more importantly, we're going to do a program cutting program. Like, what is really, the buildings are structures. What's going on in the buildings? We're going to have a ribbon cutting of all the wonderful programs, because you're only seeing the personnel side. Attached to these STEM programs, attached to these extra clubs and opportunities are programs. And we want to just dedicate that a ribbon cutting, take the bow off the package and say, here's what North Brunswick schools have. Here's what the new school and new programs and a new parallel paths with technology has allowed us to offer your children. Many families don't even know that we start coding in second grade and some of the great work of the AMP Ed algebra program, where children are designing and getting algebra credit in 7th and 8th grade, learning how to learn algebra through design, through manufacturing, through entrepreneurship. This is unbelievable, and we're now setting a pathway. I know I'm taking Mr. Brooks's report out in the curriculum during next week, but we're excited. It's a great secret. We don't want to make it a secret. So our ribbon cutting will be around our programming and our opportunities for a pre-K to 12 seamless education opportunity here in North Brunswick. So you're seeing the budgeting aspect of it, so it's not that fun. It's like, oh, okay, you're getting people. But there's people to a strategic plan. And that's important. The growth of our school district wasn't just physical structures. It's what's going on in there and how we realign our organizational design as it relates to curriculum, as it relates to opportunity, as it relates to standards and beyond, that future-ready mentality. They used to call it 21st century skills, but I will not use that phrase. You know why? 21st century is 2001. We're 2021. We're preparing kids for 2040. So it's future-ready. So it's exciting. But this is the many levers that we want to show everyone how we're getting there and how we're maintaining that focus, that balanced scale of educational integrity. We know we get criticized sometimes on these crazy sites, great schools, because we accept all children, all challenges. But we also know every child that comes through here will have an opportunity to succeed beyond what we think. So we're not preparing for our past, we're preparing them for their future. So, Ms. Rumbo?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to just conclude with, and no, that can stay, because there's also some grant-funded things there, is I just want to say, it's been, as Dr. Zukowski just said, it has been exciting, and I know he mentioned, just as one example, the AMP Ed project and courses that we offer at the middle school, and that was all started with the Title I grant, and it's still continuing. So again, as Dr. Zukowski mentioned a little while ago at the beginning of the presentation, the positions we're building in as grant funded, we are building them in to be sustainable. And as part of my other role is the director of grants for the past 8 years. So it's been a pleasure to really work with the whole team on these new and exciting positions and programs for next school year. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rumbo. And it's not an accident. We're so proud of Ms. Janine Lanphier, recently named New Jersey STEM Educator of the Year. Well, you can't become STEM Educator of the Year if you're not building programs, if you're not operating and looking at future-ready opportunities for children. So, and I want to give all the credit to Ms. Lamphere for doing this and being recognized, but I want to thank Ms. Rumbo, and of course, I want to introduce Ms. Shiroka for help building that opportunity for our children and our leaders like Ms. Lamphere can excel. Thank you, Ms. Rumbo. You can exit left. And yes, a lot of virtual clapping I hear through the millions of viewers. Ms. Shiroka, you can take it away. Thank
Good
you.
morning. Can you guys hear me okay?
Do you
All
need
right.
to spray? You're going to stay away from the mic?
I'm going to stay away from the mic. I'll stay right here. All right, so I have my notes here just in case I need some details, but obviously curriculum, professional learning, and technology. The state of New Jersey has new standards that have been adopted. So if you see here in the blue, by September 2021, we will be implementing new standards in visual performing arts, updated standards in science, that's an update to the NGSS, Next Generation Science Standards, world languages, and career readiness, life literacies, and key skills, which is woven into all of those. For the following September, we will be doing comprehensive health and PE, physical education, social studies, computer science, and design thinking. And we aren't waiting until then to do that. We're actually beginning that process of updating our curriculum throughout this year and next year. So when we prepare for that, a lot of those units are expected to be integrated. They need to have climate change built into every subject area. That is a state mandate. And they also have to have cultural literacy, as well as financial literacy and social justice, and gifted and talented strands built into them as well. So in preparing for that, we need curricular resources, and it's balancing now. We have those parallel paths, digital and traditional resources. So just because we've spent a ton of money on Chromebooks and digital resources, it doesn't mean we can give up all the paper resources as well. Research does show in younger students having physical paper books is actually more effective than them on digital devices. And as we move through the grades, we need a balance of both. So we're still investing in hard consumables as well as paper books, but also building out our digital pathways as well. So hopefully your children's backpacks will not be as heavy as they had been previously. We are adopting a new math program, K-4, called Envisions, which is a big adoption for us. It is going to be an exciting program. We talked about that with the curriculum committee, and we've been piloting this last year and feel that it will be very impactful on our students.
Ms. Shiroka, for all those everyday math parents who are saying, thank goodness, I want to say thank goodness.
Okay. It's a very hands-on, real-life examples program, and we've seen some great results with it with our pilot teachers this past year. So we've been embedding the CAR process. We've been part of pilots with the Department of Education over the last few years.
Ms. Shiroka, just real quick, CAR, so
CAR is,
quickly.
right, the Connected Action Roadmap, which is a process of really, it's a framework to guide instruction, right? So it uses an analogy of a travel, of a journey, and our ultimate destination is student learning. That's where we're going. And to do that, we use our journey with teachers who are driving the process. So they engage in curricular work and work in professional learning groups, which is their vehicle to get to the student learning. And they look at what do our students need to know, what do they know already, and how do we get them to that learning, and what do we do if they don't get there, if they haven't gotten there. So we have that embedded pre-K through 12. We've been involved in some pilots with NJPSA, the Principals Association, as well as the state of New Jersey. And we are continuing to develop curriculum through that process, so teachers are not just given a curriculum, they work on that collaboratively and develop it as they work.
And they develop it jointly. So think about a curriculum, it's great, piece of paper, written, could be technically sound, but what's the feedback from the end users? Who are the end users? The instructional core, teacher, student, content. So what's the marriage like? Is that the three getting along? Is there outcomes that we need to change? Teachers talking to teachers, engage in a curricular process in a very prescriptive framework. But the teachers love it. It's a little more work, but it gets their voices and the student voices into the process.
And it's also an equity issue. So if we have teachers who are supposed to be teaching to curricular standards for the state, and one teacher is teaching different objectives to the standards than another teacher, then how can we compare the results that the students get? So we need to make sure that we're teaching the same objectives based on those standards. We are putting into the budget resources for English language learners. We have that dual language class expansion that Ms. Rumbo mentioned at LP and Parsons. And that involves a great deal of curricular resources as well. So you're not just paying for English resources, but you're also paying for Spanish resources because they learn both languages simultaneously. They have a week in English world and a week in Spanish world. It does require extra resources and money. We have additional high school courses that are being added this year. We are expanding our Avid program at MBTMS. And we are, as Dr. Z said, we're adding new middle school STEM courses and technology courses. We're streamlining our robotics, coding, and technology courses and our digital literacy, and also adding some exciting courses in terms of aquatic ecosystem and culture for the 8th grade, as well as something called mechatronics, which are some exciting engineering challenging courses that are really going to make our programs competitive and somewhere that I believe our parents will really want their students to be.
The mechatronics is just exciting. It's really that next level of learning and teaching, which is application with our new facilities, our new training. The missing piece is that, again, student voices, student connection. We want students to be connected to their outcomes. And if they're doing things by applying the curriculum, like we were doing with the Amped Ed with algebra, the mechatronics and STEAM courses. One day we're going to give you a full view of the new middle school when we have our what do you call the labs that started in libraries? Maker spaces, thank you. Oh, I forget what they call. I call them labs, but we have maker spaces where kids could develop and design and use 3D printers. See, learning is at the highest level when you could apply it because you understand it. Hands-on TV studio, broadcasting opportunities. We can't go into it. It was so much, so we felt our ribbon cutting is going to be going into it. But I do want to mention one thing. We also have an Avid program at the high school. People go, what's the Avid program? It's a cohort of students that are doing, they just needed a little extra goal setting and specialized work. Mr. Brooks, for many years, and the board prior to with Mr. Brooks, used to say to us, can we get for that child who maybe doesn't know he wants STEM or STEAM or the arts, or how do we get a program that helps children who are good students, good kids, but goal setting? So that's a goal setting, and we took students that just didn't have, that focus. They loved this program because last year Mr. Neller announced that every one of our students passed high level honor roll and went on to college acceptance, that they didn't know if they're going to be in college, they didn't want to go maybe the trades. It helped them formulate a college and career path. So it's an exciting program, and it's been expanding. No one's forced to go in it, but it gives those students who we can identify sometimes, say, look, you're a great child, you're a great student, you could be, but you just need some pathways. And
this also helps that connection between the 7-8 school, MBTMS, and moving into the high school as well.
so that's what that Avid is. So when we use a lot of acronyms, we want to make sure, but we'll certainly go into it when we do our ribbon cutting of our pre-K-12 program.
And one last thing here, if you notice the little star, those are fully or grant funded as well. Ms. Rumbaugh mentioned those in her other slides, but these are very important that funding comes from some of the various multitude of grants that we have available to us right now. So obviously technology has just expanded this year tremendously. I didn't put a ton of bullets here, but we are going to continue to spend the cost to maintain and implement our existing and implement some new software. We did add a great deal of new software programs really to support our online learning this year, and we will continue those. We had the one-to-one Chromebook initiative. We have to refresh models. Our new pre-K students coming in will have to get new devices when they come in because we will still have those. And that is partially grant funded or fully grant funded, depending on how we've set it up. And we have to have new models of Chromebooks for students coming into the district and things that break and so on. So we have to continue to fund that. E-rate projects. So E-rate is a very complicated funding mechanism that the federal government provides, gives us 60% when we
60%.
fund 40% of the cost. And
In the budget, we'll show 100%, but 60% is a receivable that Ms. Rosa Hawk will take care of and matching it, so it's really a receivable. So it's not true a revenue source, but we can budget the full 100% knowing that 60% will be coming back from the government.
so especially with internet upgrades and things like that, the federal government is looking at those E-rate items. And we have a long-term technology plan for our infrastructure to continue, which we can't just, we've done a lot of upgrades and it's like, wow, we spent all this money on these switches. Well, guess what? We have to continue to keep them updated and keep upgrading them.
Incrementally, smart, there's a plan in place because you can't do everything, we need to do this. Now what are we gonna do? Where was money gonna come from? So it's proactively updating incrementally.
Okay, so lastly, we have New Line interactive boards. This is what we have as the state-of-the-art model right now at MBTMS. It's an interactive whiteboard that actually has a computer built into it, so we don't actually have to purchase a second computer to attach to it, like we did with our smart boards. We have smart boards now that we've had in the district for many years, and their life cycle is ending, so we have to
They're
replace
known now
them.
as not so smart boards.
Correct. So we really have a cycle started, so we will be replacing a certain number in each school each year, and this year we will be able to fully grant fund that part of technology upgrade. I think the teachers will be very excited about those. Yes?
Let me repeat the question so we have a question, Mr. Brooks wants to know, will the smart boards, let me go back,
Yep.
that we're talking about, will the smart boards that we're replacing be replaced with new smart board? So go ahead.
So
talk
smart
about-
board is actually a trademark. It's kind of like Band-Aid. It's a company, and it's a specific kind of board that is the board, and then it has the projector attached to it.
With a separate computer connected.
Right. So that has three parts to it. The bulbs go, the board goes, there's all different things that can go wrong. New Line interactive boards is basically like a TV monitor, but it's got the computer built into it. It's still touchable. And so that's the technology that we are moving to. So we're phasing out the smart boards and moving into the New Line boards. Yeah. And so if we have smart boards, we'll take them out and use those parts. The ones that we're replacing, we'll use those parts for other ones to keep them going until we get to them in the cycle.
Is that part of, will that be part of the educational process for some of the students in STEM to work on?
That's a great idea. Mr. Brooks said maybe that could be part of the educational process for some of those
We're gonna
students
put them in the
STEM to work.
makerspace labs and say, go to it.
Absolutely. I think our techs would love the help. A great idea. So obviously, implementing all these different programs and updating to new student learning standards cannot be done without professional learning. And professional learning is not just training and teaching people about something. It is ongoing, integrated professional learning collaboratively. Teachers do this together. They look at student data, they look at the student work, and then they work on building their units collaboratively. We need to make sure that we're addressing cultural awareness, equity, and culturally responsive teaching. Again, the Avid that Dr. Zykowski went into a little bit more. The Envisions units, we have to rewrite those units. We have teams prepared to rewrite those and do training also for our parents and explain to our parents how to implement these new, how to work with this new piece.
Ms. Soroka, may I stop you? Everyone knows the CUSAC grading. Every 3 years, we get audited by the state, the DOE, to see how we're meeting areas. One area is programming, curriculum. There's 5 areas. And we've always had highest standards, passing, we have an exceptional grade. It's because when you start a new program, you have to have the units in place. You have to have board-approved programs. You have to have, for example, addressing equity, cultural responsive teaching. It's a new part of the overarching standard requirement. You have to have the learning standards. It used to be called the core content standards. Right now, the NJSLA assessments are next to the NJ standards. This is all part of what we get assessed every 3 years. It's also part of when Miss Rosa Hawk hands in our budget documents. They look at Janet, Ms. Soroka's curriculum requirements. That we have a signature that we said we did this, this, and this. It's in there. And then we get evaluated, and we're being evaluated next year, I believe, with CUSAC. 2 years? Oh, that's right. Because of COVID, we got pushed off. So when we get evaluated, they will evaluate us. That this work is being done. So we just want to show the connectiveness, that we just are not putting things in a budget. We're putting teachers so they have summer work. This is work that needs to be done, is required, and of course, it's part of great planning that we have the teachers part of it. So I just want everyone to know, when we get evaluated, you hear the CUSAC grade, and we're considered a high-performing district. They look at our process, not just the end result of having this stuff. So,
Thank you. And finally, music and performing arts standards, training in that, as well as working with teachers to assist them in dealing with these learning gaps, right? What are the innovative ways that we can really support to accelerate our students and not just remediate? That's the big language that we're working with right now. We want to make sure all of our teachers are prepared and ready and supported in addressing those needs of our students. And that's it for me, Dr. Z. Any questions from anybody before we?
any questions? We could take that. Thank
Okay,
you, Mr.
thank you very
Roca.
much.
We appreciate a lot of virtual clapping and real live clapping. Ms. Rosa Hawk, do you want to come up and talk about our assistant business administrator? Are you all set? I will get out of your way.
Thank you, Dr. Z. Good morning, everyone. So in front of us, we have our schedule here of some of our big projects that are going on in all our facilities and throughout the district. The first one, as you know, is our roofing plan, and that has been going on for several years. This is just one of the last stages of our project to replace all the roofs throughout the district. That one will be here at the high school. We do have to pay out some monies to the DOE in order to support all of our bonds that we have floating out there for the last constructions, all the additions that we've had in the district over the last 10, 15 years.
So let me just say, because you won't say, state SDA, which is the DOE department, bankrupt. So any money that they need promissory notes go back to construction 03 and beyond, that if you receive money, they're now making you pay an annual assessment to stop, they can continue promising and delivering. So we have to give back $250,000. It's been that way for probably about 6 years now.
Yeah, it's very consistent.
So it's an annual assessment that people, and we put it through our reserve. We say it's part of the cost of doing business. It's really a charge on money that we receive and promise of state aid to capital projects that we're now helping SDA, School Development Authority, stay out of bankruptcy.
On there, as you can see, is our walkways. Safety is a huge part of our culture here in the district. And so we've put aside monies to evaluate all of our walkways, either throughout the elementary school and particular here at the high school as well, and refurbish them and keep them up to standard so, of course, that no one gets hurt on our property. The other thing is those trailers that everyone sees in front of the high school right now. Perhaps at the time it was well needed. It's something that Dr. Zakowski's been very adamant about. We need.
First sledgehammer through this hot.
Yes, we actually want to have a contest, right? So we want to get rid of those trailers. Mr. Carroll, who's sitting in the back here, is feverishly working to get estimates and a timeline put together to get rid of those trailers.
Take it away, open up, and then patio away. We're going to refurbish and put it back to the beautiful structure it should be.
Exactly.
Not this eyesore, but we needed the room. We now have more room. We're removing those trailers. It's in the budget.
It's in the
Right,
budget.
Mr. Carroll? I get the first sledgehammer. Thank you.
The other item here is we continually evaluate all of our equipment, whether it's our vehicles, our snow removing, or any other maintenance type of equipment that we have. And again, we have them on rotating cycles to evaluate them, refurbish them, and replace them so that, again, we can keep the facilities clean, safe, and a place where people want to come in. Sure.
It will not snow next winter. I am purchasing snow blowers and snow cats for the district.
Yes.
I did it in my home 25 years ago. I had a snow blower that wasn't used for 3 or 4 years because it wasn't snowing enough. So I think we're in good shape. I'm doing that just so we don't have snow next year.
Yeah, and I want to thank Mr. Kuhner, who has been helping us evaluate our equipment, along with Mr. Burns, Billy Burns, and Paul, Mr. Carroll. Again, collectively looking at what we need and how can we make what we have last. So here are some funds to get this program rolling. So thanks, gentlemen, for your assistance with that. And our solar program, of course, you see solar throughout our schools now, but the one last item that we have not, or that we are about to embark on, is at the middle school. Dr. Zakowski, you have a little more background about how there used to be, there wasn't
People are going to say,
ability.
why didn't you build a middle school, put the solar while you're building it? Because the grid was saturated. And until they started the senior housing, I think, right next to Walgreens, next to our middle school, that opened the grid up. So we applied. So when you see that $1 million cost, that is the estimate cost of doing the work. That's not the funding source. The funding source is third-party power purchasing agreement. Well, a company will put the solar on. They will lease our roofs. We will get a guaranteed 15-year energy rate that is going to be outstanding. We can reduce the lines for energy and a positive cash flow. We are approximately, with all our other roofs and paying for all the construction, because we get a cash flow of probably about $500,000-$600,000 a year, but that goes to pay off the loans of fixing HVACs and all those. It has to go back. It's a governmental program. They allow us to take the money we're making. How do you make money from solar? You get these green energy rebates. You get solar SRECs, solar renewable energy certificates. They get sold. We don't have to do it. The companies that put it, and we get the rental that they're using our roof work, they take care of all that. There's no disconnect between the guarantee on our roof and the solar installation. There's an agreement there, so we are covered, the taxpayer's covered, and there's a positive cash flow that we will use. So the $1 million worth of work, we're just showing you the work. We're not paying for it. In fact, we'll get a positive cash flow. And what we do, just like our enterprise funds, where we take money we make from cafeteria, we put it back into the cafeteria, money from transportation, we put it back. This money goes back into all our costs. It helps our budget. It reduces those, that reliance on utilities that, oh my God, we have to cut. We can't increase the budget or a program. We've got to cut people because we got to pay for our electric bill. We know what we're going to pay for the next 15 years in electric. We know, because you'll hear from Mr. Keener, he's our energy manager. We know there's 2 ways of saving for the taxpayers' energy costs. First is utilization. Don't waste it. Don't leave lights on. Don't leave computers on. We've taken care of that. The next is cost. So now, by connecting low cost, great utilization, you have the best, and we have a commitment, and we've been working on this commitment. One of the reasons why we're a national green school here in high school, we've saved so much money in our practices and overall curriculum that we were not only a state green ribbon school, we were a national green ribbon school. These are intentional programs that we started with the Board of Education back in '09. And it's all coming to fruition with our roofing plan and our solar ability, because SRECs are now marketable, so companies say, okay, that commodity sells well, so we could sell the SRECs and give it back to the districts as a partner. So that's what that power purchase agreement. So we're getting $1 million worth of solar just on the on the middle school, costing us nothing, bringing us a positive cash flow.
Yep. And we'll see that actually on our next agenda.
Yes, you'll see that
We're going out for bid.
on Wednesday, which is a virtual meeting.
Yep.
And then
The
we have the
last
last 500, oh, you're
No,
doing it.
no,
you're
that's
fine.
okay. And
I was on a roll, sorry.
I should have just let you finish then.
The president said sit
Because I will,
down
I
and
will
stop.
defer to you again if I get caught up on this one. And then of course we are still finishing off our cleanup, if you will, of our lighting, our HVAC upgrades. That's associated with the ESIP project that we started a couple of years ago for that $13-14 million investment that was made at that point. So those are our big projects. Again, safety is huge. We want to keep our buildings going so we have a safe place for people to work and to learn in.
And the key thing, $3.8 million, no impact on the taxpayer.
Okay, Dr. Z?
Yeah, you want to take, just very quickly go through, I know Mr. Carroll's here, he does all of this responsibility, but part of this budget, Ms. Hockey, are ongoing, you deal with this all the time.
Yeah, and I have to thank both Paul and Ray have been great support in getting all these projects either identified or working on them with our facilities staff members. You can see we have elevators in our buildings. We have to make sure that we always have all of our inspections done, whether it's our fire, all the things that's our alarms, our elevators, all those inspections, water. The DOE provides us with checklists to carry out all of these necessary items, and both Paul and Ray work together with our crews to ensure that's done. We are working at evaluating all of our gyms to make sure that the walls where the kids play off of are clean and are maintained. It's been several years. Again, those are items that we put into this budget in order to keep our facilities a great place to work and a safe place to work. Some of the items there, no different than your own home. You have to keep evaluating our glass, our windows, our shades, our blinds. Again, keep the classrooms and the offices safe and neat for everybody to work in and learn in. More items here. Again, we continue to evaluate all the equipment that our people have in order to do their jobs effectively. Floor scrubbers, leaf blowers, you name it. I'm learning about it, but I am so grateful that we have a great staff here in the district to work all of that out. And we talked about maintaining our paveways, our sidewalks, and so on. So we have a long list of things to carry out, but we have a great crew. As Dr. Zakowski, you know, during the snow removal, invaluable with all that we had to work with. So thanks.
And in really working with the township as well, we have a great
Yes.
relationship because there's one taxpayer. They utilize our machines, we utilize their machines when we don't have enough. I'm happy to report it will be no snow next couple of years when we get those
Oh,
up there.
no, because we have too much now.
Right.
No.
But I do want to say that we want you to know it's in the budget, again, being very responsible incrementally. Any questions for Ms. Hock, board members, anybody, before we go to the next section? We'll certainly have another part for public comment, but while we have Ms. Hock up here, Ms. Hock, thank you. Oh, yes, it is.
So it's not going to snow. Ms.
That
Gonzalez?
line says, so the question was from our board president was, you know, it's not showing, it does say snow removal upgrades, and so that's there. It's not going to snow, so maybe it's a good sign that the computer doesn't broadcast. But that last line, so the question was, yeah, it's a part of our
It's an
annual
omit.
checklist.
Yes. Good?
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
You heard about special services, special education, all children mean all. Mr. Harry does a lot more than just special services. Our foster program, you know, working with foster children, working with homeless children, working with many other areas for student services. Without further ado, Mr. Christopher Harry talking about student services.
Thank you, Dr. Z. Can everybody hear me? Yep, a little bit more? Oh. Okay, sorry. Okay, how's that? Getting better? Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you. I want to say thank you to the board always, because you're always supporting special services, our programs, our students. So you've been a wonderful advocate for our students. One of the first personnel additions we want to talk about is at the high school. We talk about mandated personnel in student services and special education, generally speaking, because there are a lot of rules and regulations around special services, alternative education, there's class size regulations, sometimes there's ratio regulations, and age regulations. So when we talk about mandated personnel, it's because of one of those issues. It's an issue because of the class size, the ages. Sometimes it's required by a certificate. So at the high school, as you know, Dr. Z talked about that we are keeping a lot of our students in district, and we're doing a great job of it. And we do it better than out of district school districts. That's what I believe. So in doing that, we have a lot of programs. We've had a lot of programs at the elementary school. Those students have moved up to the middle school, and now they're moving to the high school. So you'll continue to see some additional programs developing at the high school. And the students at the high school, they're not only in class, but they're also going out into the community to learn about transition and jobs. Okay, so when we're talking about the teacher and we talk about the aids that we might need to assist the teachers, that's why. Okay, we're talking about the child study team, the learning disability teacher consultant. That's a required person on the child study team. They do evaluations. There's case management. They work with the families. But a huge piece of that is the consultant piece, where they need to go into the classroom. They need to design programs. So that's a huge piece to it. And recently, obviously, with the pandemic, we've had a little difficulty with the testing. Testing needs to be in person. Okay, so we were a little behind on our testing, as every school district in the New Jersey and probably the United States. So that additional person will allow us to provide the continual programming for our students. Nursing and related services, sometimes that's also underneath student services because we run a lot of programs that require nursing services. Okay, here we're talking about at the preschool, which we're expanding by about 7 classes. So right now we have about 300 students in our preschool. We're trying to get over 400, okay? And the preschool universe that the state has kind of talked to us about how many students we're looking to bring into preschool is roughly 800 to 900, okay? So we're gonna continue to be expanding. We talk about the high school alternative school, or the middle school alternative school, the one school counselor, but we're also talked about the high school teacher as well. For alternative school, there's also requirements in class size there. We also talk about, in alternative school, why is there a class size requirement? Because we want to provide the best services for our students in a small group environment. And by providing a counselor or a teacher, we can offer wraparound services that assist our students in making the progress and the gains that we need for them to make and that they need to make so that they can progress and graduate and be successful. The University Behavioral Healthcare Services, where we're bringing back one therapist and a half-time psychiatrist. So currently, we have a partnership with UBHC, that's University Behavioral Healthcare from Rutgers University. And we have 2 therapists at the high school. We have one 5 through 8 and one at the elementary. We take data twice a year on the services that the students require. And before the pandemic, we had this therapist and a full-time psychiatrist. But because of the pandemic, we reduced it. Now we're going to bring that back. Those are services that our students require throughout the district. The therapists, while stationed at at particular levels, can move around as necessary. So if there's something that occurs at the high school or middle school, we can have the therapist move about. The psychiatrist provides the necessary psychiatric oversight and medication maintenance for some of our students that really require it, and they've been benefiting. Okay, next slide. So the cross-grade expansion at the high school, as I was talking about, you're going to continue to see it expand at the high school this year and in upcoming years. The cross-grade programming is, again, you'll see the expansion in the transition and going out into the community as well. We're trying to partner, Dr. Z is really trying to push us to expand that transition programming so that we're in the community even more. This year, due to the pandemic, that took a little hit, but we're going to be right back. ESY is the extended school year. That's a required program through student services or special education. And you will see an increase this year due to students' needs. They'll be working on their IEP goals. And what we we've done is we've gone to a 30-day program. It used to be 20 days, we've moved to a 30-day program. In doing so, we're able to recoup some of our money from the state through an extraordinary aid reimbursement program. And this really just targets specific goals and objectives in a student's IEPs that they need to make progress on. And again, we try to have lower, smaller class sizes, as of course you know the research says small class size students progress more. Preschool disabled, it says rolling admissions and evaluations in the summer. That's at any point in time when a student becomes 3 years old, we need to take them into special education if they have the need. Okay, so at any point in time, we could have 10, we could have 5. You don't really know. We work with the state coordinator, but there are times when the families don't identify that they have this need until very late, and then we're not ready for that. Most of the time, they identify early, and we're able to be prepared, but that's, as we say, it's rolling admissions. And then child study team services. It says evaluations, but of course there's the case management, there's the programming, there's a lot of counseling in addition to the UBHC that goes on. There's a lot of one-to-one reading and assessments that need to take place, and that's why we're looking to expand with the LDTC. Short on slides, but does anybody have a question about special education? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Harry. Mr. Keener?
Morning. Can you hear me? Most people don't want to, but okay. So transportation. So for this year, CPI for transportation is set at 1.69. What that means is by state sets the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. That's the maximum that any bus contract can be raised for next year. We are currently in negotiations, as Dr. Z pointed out a little while ago. We have a transportation bid this coming week to give us an idea of what our costs are going to look like for next year. Right? Right, yeah. If they don't take the CPI, then obviously our costs are going to come down. We're hoping to see the prices come down a little bit, but we're not sure right now. The estimate for transportation is 17% increase this year. That's the largest it's been since I've been here, and there are a lot of factors that go into it. This year, because of COVID, the 65% payment to bus contractors really affected our bids that we received last year. The increase in charter school busing, as Dr. Z pointed out before, the numbers are increasing in the enrollment, and therefore we, on some of these schools, are required to provide transportation to them, and the number of buses we need to transport them is going up. And just like our regular to and from bus for regular gen ed students in district, the bus costs for those are even a little bit higher because they're not even in the county. We're transporting them to Somerset County in most cases. The other factor that's coming into play is the driver shortage that's not listed up here. What we're seeing are bus companies are having to raise the salaries that they're paying their drivers in order to attract them. And it's really difficult because you now have competition with FedEx, with Amazon, even the Postal Service is starting to do more home deliveries. And if you have a choice of transporting 54 screaming young adults and 54 packages that don't say a word,
They pay more.
and they pay more, I can guarantee you where the drivers are gonna go. So, a driver for a school bus is required to have a CDL, commercial driver's license. Same thing for a driver for Amazon, for FedEx, and so forth. It's based on the weight of the vehicle. So if that driver has a CDL and they can make more money hauling packages that don't talk back to them or have parents that yell at them at a bus stop, I think they're gonna take that. So we're working on that and trying to increase.
Talk about competition amongst districts. So we got Amazon and all these other delivery services.
But districts are making plays and raising their salaries, and so it's, people are moving and changing because it's supply and demand. And unfortunately, the supply is low and the demand is not only high, it's mandated. When we talk about charter schools, the schools, we can't give aid in lieu. So some parochial parents are saying, wait a minute, you just write it, you give us $1,000. We can't do that with the charter schools. We have to provide busing. And so the bus services know that. That's why the costs are twice the cost sometimes in some instances. And we have our attorney, Mr. Bush, and he's been working on it. We've been taking it. We've been trying to change that regulation because we think it's unfair to the taxpayers. But it's the law of the land right now. So we have a lot of factors that cost that 17%. And we've always prided ourselves in the second most efficient transportation program in the county. We can't beat Monroe. They quadruple tier. For some reason, we can't beat them. But every other district we beat because of our efficiencies. But even with the efficiencies, that's why the 17% we're budgeting, we don't even know that's for sure, but that's our estimate, and it's the highest estimate since I've been here and since you've been here.
Correct. And that 65%, because of COVID, really hurt us. It hurts the school busing across the entire state. Because what happens is, we're guaranteeing contractors 65% of their daily rate when we have to go virtual and they're not transporting the students. So we're getting credit for a day of school. They're getting paid, but only 65% for that rate because they're not transporting. Well, what happened is when we went out to bid for this current year, the transportation companies just take 180 school days. That's what they want to come out with at the end of the school year. And they know that there are going to be certain days that they're only going to be getting 65% of a payment. So they increased their daily rate, which raised our costs. So all of those factors go into what's happening with transportation. Excuse me. Any questions on transportation? So we go into our energy program. As Dr. Z pointed out, we are right in the middle of putting in our solar and working on that. We actually have a shutdown schedule. I just found out yesterday. We're going to be shutting down the high school the week that we're on break, April 6th through 9th. We'll shut the building down completely. One, it's to put a new pole out front for the service coming in. Two, it's to put in 2 cabinets that will monitor our solar so that we can get the rebates and the money back from our solar program. So that's going to take for a day, shutting down this entire building, putting in those 2 cabinets and putting in the poles so that we can increase our solar production. We still have the 3 plants that are Energy Star certified plants. Our cost avoidance that Dr. Z talked about before, we started this program roughly in 2008, and it's a behavior modification program. So it's making sure that when we leave this room, we turn the lights out. When a teacher or an office administrator leaves their office, they turn the monitor off on their computer. We don't leave cell phones plugged in or the chargers plugged in because that's phantom use and we're draining and we're using electric. So we have a behavior modification program.
And Mr.
Keener, So from 2008, they took a baseline, what we averaged over the previous 3 years, and what we're using now in energy, even with higher costs. Imagine 13 years later, they look at that, and we have avoided, saved the taxpayers over $6.1 million.
Yeah, we hit 6.1 this year.
If we would just stay to 2008 levels, it would have cost $6.1 million collectively for all our buildings.
Correct. If we didn't change our behaviors, we would have spent that money.
And now
So-
we take the behavior modification, and now we're gonna insert the solar guarantee rates that we're talking about monitoring, and we're gonna save even further, maximizing what we use to, the fixed costs, utilities, so we can educate and take that money and put it back into educating children, so the taxpayers are not just paying high bills, we're paying for our education, so.
Correct. The other thing that I'm really anxious to try is I've applied for, through the Clean Cities Coalition, they're running a pilot program on electric school buses. And I've put in an application for us to be part of that. Hopefully within the next 4 or 5 months, we'll hear that we have become eligible for it. And what that would mean is they would give us 1 or 2 electric school buses along with the charging stations to try and see if it's beneficial to us, if it can knock our costs down, and clean energy. So we're really excited to try to get into that program. And we always try to maintain, as Dr. Z pointed out before, our green ribbon schools. It was very exciting to go down to Washington 2 years ago and get the National Green Ribbon Award. It was great. It was a great experience. And we're doing a lot of things currently to maintain that. And they're going to try to expand it to other buildings as we go forward. I don't have anything unless you have questions.
Questions? I just want to say, Mr. Keener, and on behalf of Mr. Carroll, stepping up when transportation, everyone said, okay, it's slowed down. Mr. Keener stepped up in the operations side of the district, working with Mr. Carroll and carrying out so many behind-the-scenes actions, whether it was snow removal, whether it was upgrading and maintenance and fixing things behind the scenes, working with our building projects. So I know I speak for Mr. Carroll, and I speak for Ms. Hock and the entire district. We want to thank you for stepping up and continue to step up for helping us. So we know you as a transportation, I don't know, I don't want to fill in the blank because people all tell me different names after that. Phil.
Yeah, that's-
The
you can't say
transportation,
that.
I'll say guru, but we want to thank you for doing all the other operational stuff with Mr. Carroll.
Sure, thank you.
So, we're gonna move along. We're getting to the end. Just another 4 hours, we'll be out of here, I promise. I'm just kidding. I just want to make note for the public. Our general budget is $120 million. Our state aid is $34.3 million. Take a look just 7 years ago. We had a $93 million budget, and it was state aid of $11.7 million. So our growth is $26 million. You add $26 million to 93.4, you get 120. Our state aid growth was $22.6 million. You add 22.6 to 11.7, you get 34.3. So what I'm showing here is that our budget grew, the 84% of the budget growth has been funded through state aid. As we grew as a district and requirements and putting things in and adding, 84% of the cost has been provided by the state aid. I want to thank the Board of Ed. I want to thank the staff supporting us. The board, you supported us, fighting this battle, allowing me to go to Trenton, allowing others to lobby in all areas, whether it was Mr. Keener as the head of the transportation directors, whether it was me as president of superintendents, Ms. Sharoka, Ms. Rumbo, whether it was Paul. Every one of us were lobbying our organizations, getting together, putting our best foot forward for fighting for the residents and taxpayers of North Brunswick. So we're very happy. That's why I was so excited that we could say 0 increase. So even with this growth, we know the growth was needed, it was permitted, but we didn't just put it on the taxpayers. 84% of the budget growth over the 7 years, 84% has been through state aid. and promises kept. Let me show you a quick slide. And this came back in 2015. It was a PowerPoint. We were going around trying to convince people what you should expect, how much you should get back. The average assessed home at the time was $158,000. Now it's $160,000. We said it's going to cost you $19 per month starting a couple years after it was passed. So, saying all that, promises kept. 6 years of the project, we've been able to give back $4.8 million. And it's cost the taxpayers zero in that debt service. Because the promise was that $19 per month at 4% over 30 years would be the highest worst case scenario. That's what we had to say. People, yeah, sure, Dr. Z, you and the board, we know what you're doing. Tax, build another school. We want to make sure we are held accountable to the promise that we were going to do everything we can, everything we're able to do to build that school, to fund this school. We didn't go for another referendum for anything else. I've been here going on 15 full years. Whether we put roofs in, turf fields, labs, because we have a promise that we're going to do it strategically, incrementally, and focus on that scale of balance. Oops. This is a one-pager. What you just heard is 130. Where's my? There it is. Look at the last line. The grand total, $137 million project, budget. You see, what I mentioned, $120 million. That's our operating budget. The other budgets are state sources, grants, levy for our debt service, which is our buildings. We're still paying off the expansion from 2005 here at the high school. Because you look at it, 20, 25 years. The board recently passed a refinancing where we're down to 1% interest, 2% interest. We refinance, but you have to pay that. So counting that entire $137 million, zero to operate next year increase from both. See, you can see here, folks, the general fund, that's how we operate year to year. This is how we operate. We don't know with grant funds for title monies, and you hear about, oh, this was grant funded, that was grant funded. Each year, that could be different. The $5.1 million here, state sources, that's the preschool grant. That wasn't there 3 years ago. The federal sources, that's what Ms. Rumbo applies for, and Mr. Harry for IDEA and title monies. That has to be taken out of the general fund because it's not guaranteed. We may not be getting it. And then the debt service is like your mortgage. In the old days, people voted on the general fund because you can't vote again on the mortgage. You already said we could build and take a loan out, so now we got to pay it. What we're sharing with the public is how do we run our schools annually and pay our mortgages and our debt without increasing taxes? That's what we're showing you today. And that's with the $137 million. And take a look on the expense side. There's $3 million of work. There's that right across on the revenue side from reserve accounts. There's a charter school, $6.3 million. Dr. Z, you said it was 7.5. Yes, it is. But there's laws that require us, once we put it in the charter school account, I have to take it from our own students. So the money is there in case it goes to 7.5, because it's an estimate. But I'm not putting it all there. And I tell the county this every year, the state every year, because if we need it, we'll put it there. But if I don't need it, it's going to our students. So they say, you think you're smarter than the average bear? And I say, no, I work for North Brunswick, and we're going to make sure our children have the money and the costs and supplies that we need. But if you're right in your estimates, and they're never right, they tell me I have to put it there. They're never right because they estimate. We're better at projecting and estimating, but we also don't want to leave the board and the community like, uh-oh, we're $1 million short. So 6.3 is in there, 7.5 is our obligation. It's all in there. And so that's your one pager that'll be available when you get this, you take this presentation, it'll be online. Oh, let's begin where we started. Let's end where we started. Did I mention 0.00? Even though the state says we could go up and really 1.7 million additional, we're not doing that. Even though the 2.2 million of charter school is in there. What are some of the variables? Because we're in a preliminary. Well, I have to. Ms. Hawk will be sending it. We'll sign off on it. If the board votes on this budget, we'll sign off. It's due Monday. We'll send it up through, they call the odd sum budget retrieval. It's all electronic. They'll check it. Make sure everything we say in compliance are caps, that we're budgeting correctly and in compliance. They'll check it. We'll get a word back in a couple weeks, and that money will not change. That means we're locked into the 137 million. We may get retirements. That helps, because typically you don't always hire at the same rate. We may not. Our benefits rates, we're shopping now. They're all estimate. But we feel very good as we incrementally move with our negotiating team, work with the unions, how we're able to provide benefits, and how we can fund providing benefits. Some exciting announcements coming with our benefit program going to the future, making it more convenient and cost-effective right here in North Brunswick. Because we're lucky that we're have a good experience, but we want to think out what happens if we don't have a good experience. How do we eliminate those middle-range costs? $18 million is enough room to try to figure out their savings and how can we save it best for our community. And why do I mention negotiations committee? In the heart of the negotiation committee, it's a negotiable item, providing benefits. So we work together. We want to thank the unions, our associations, our staff, but we also want to thank the committee, because it wasn't just one meeting, years of negotiating incrementally, and so we're very grateful. And grants, we project grants. So you see the one side, the IDA and Ms. Rumbo's grant, they're projected. She's usually 99.9% on target, but we still don't have the official word. We will. Enrollment, we don't have official enrollment. We're registering children now. So there are some adjustments. And of course, charter school, I mentioned about 7.5, 6.2, 6.3 budgeted, and what happens with the real cost. So there's some variables that we've made and understand the process. It's all covered in our budget, but we're ready for any of these variants that could change. So what are the talking points as we wrap up? No tax increase on the budget. You're tired of me saying that. No means no. If not for the charter schools increase, again, we're not against charter schools. The funding, this is a budget meeting. We would be decreasing taxes on the average assessed home by $11. Complete funding, free full-day pre-K, 80% capacity. Other great, full update of our tech plan, 1-to-1. Completion of the new middle school as we go, on time, on budget. We're not asking for another referendum to put personnel, to put anything new on here. 90% completion of our solar plan, parallel paths, and we're ready to enter into a new solar plan for just a new a new middle school, which will be even greater return for the district. And then the last line says 90% completion of our $15 million roofing plan. We incrementally did that. You saw we had 1.6 million. We're hoping the bid is going to be, and we're asking for approval. We'll get approval for the last part of the high school. We have 800,000 that we have towards the high school this year because we delayed the project. We're going to put that, and we're going to put some solar on that once that's done. But then we have another section. We're going to go out to bid. We don't know if we could get it done this year. If we don't, we'll put it to next year's, and we'll finish it. And our district will have completed $15 million worth of roof work incrementally at no additional referendum, taxes, all done within a budget presentation over the last so many years. I would say geez, I think we started this probably 10 years ago. We started slowly. So there's a talking great news. That will wrap up the entertainment portion of our broadcast. I just want to make sure if anybody has any questions, I want to thank you if you've been listening. I want to thank the board members. Ken, where'd you go? Ken Maffio, when he comes back, I do want to thank, and I want to make sure I don't forget everyone back there. Mr. Misrule, please, I don't know everyone who's working for you today, but I know we have people out there. I saw Mr. Haytez, I saw Anthony, yourself. I want to thank our staff, our administrative staff coming in. I do want to thank Mike Toro again, because Michael has been here early in the morning, last couple days, trying to set up the technology, everything back. It's our first board meeting together in a year, maybe more than a year. I want to thank Nelson Soto. Thank you, Nelson. I thank you for filming there, broadcasting, and I know, oh, there's Ken. Mr. Maffio, thank you. I forgot to mention you earlier, working in technology. We appreciate you coming out. I want to thank and welcome our newest board member, Dr. Patel. Welcome, Councilman Guadagnino, and our board members. You're very patient, but not just for today. I want to say thank you. The gratitude extends. You all know, I don't have to tell you, I'm preaching to the choir. Numerous meetings allowing us to present to you with ideas, your support of those ideas, connecting all the dots, organizational design, running a massive school district with so many moving parts, with government compliance, with taxpayers' responsibility, with student and learning responsibilities, with staffing responsibilities, association, unions, and contracts. I want to thank you. That's the work. Sorry, Dr. Patel, we don't scare you. That's the work that you've been doing. And every person here, and we don't say that because you're sitting here. We say that because you've been supportive. I think the continuity as a superintendent, everyone looks at me with envy. I've been here in North Brunswick a long time, and they're envious because although we don't always agree, and that's perfect, we need that. We need that idea, the flow of ideas, and you know, building consensus. That's the only way it happens when you don't agree. It's healthy. But I do appreciate the support so we can run this district and you can make sure it's well run. And when we go out to the public together, we feel very good that we did everything we can with that original scale and balancing the needs of our students and needs of our staff with the responsibility to our taxpayers. So with that, I want to turn it back over to Ms. Hawk, but I will say we're gonna need a public session for questions, but I'll say first to the board members, do you have any questions before we get to the public part as we go towards the end of this meeting? I don't see any board members, so Ms. Hawk, did you want to? Do we need a motion to close this public session? No, we're going to go into public session now. So we're now in public session. I'm taking Ms. Gonzalez's role. Okay. If anybody here, you would have 3 minutes to speak. We need your name. We also have people on YouTube. So Mr. Toro's in the back monitoring any questions or comments from the public off of YouTube. And we also have Ms. James connected virtually. So Ms. James, if you have any questions, please send them through the YouTube. And we'll wait because there's a little 10-second delay through YouTube, just in case any of us slips up and uses it now. Yeah, we have a button. But so Mr. Toro, we'll wait a little bit and see what we have. She doesn't have a question. Okay, thank you, Mr. Toro. Any other comments or questions for the public portion? Seeing none here and not on YouTube. Okay, Ms. Hawk. We need a motion to close the public portion of today. Mr. Ligori said so moved. Second by Ms. Keefe. Thank you, Ms. Keefe. Mr. Brooks says yes. Affirmative for Mr. Harris. Yeah, well, we keep going. Ms. Keefe says yes. Mr. Ligori says yes. Dr. Patel says yes. Ms. Toth says yes. And that's affirmative for Ms. Gonzalez, our president. Well, hold on. We got to get Ms. James. Her answer is yes. Ms. James says yes. So we're closed for the public portion. So we do have some business. What you see tonight, today, this afternoon, we need the board to say yay or nay, that we can submit it to the county office for compliance check. It's a preliminary. There'll be another public board meeting on the budget, public hearing, but we do need that. Ms. Hawk, if you could lead that, please. And submit, and with submission to the county. It's late April? Okay. I know it's a win. So I saw Mr. Duran Harris, our vice president, make a motion. I believe Ms. Gonzalez, our president, seconded it. Is that the other way around? Okay. Mr. Brooks says yes. Yes for Mr. Duran Harris. Ms. Keefe, affirmative. Mr. Ligori, affirmative. Dr. Patel, yes. Ms. Toth, yes. Ms. Gonzalez, yes. And Ms. James, yes. That is terrific. Thank you, board members. Again, thank you. But we're not done yet because I think we have a motion to adjourn. Absolutely, Madam President. And you could use, Madam President, if you want to take this mic here, stay here.
I just wanted to, can you hear me? Okay. I just wanted to take a moment on behalf of the members of the Board of Education. I hope you forgive me for going ahead and doing this, but I just want to thank all of you whose efforts have been a part of and contributed to the information we've reviewed today. We know that you work long hours, that you have other responsibilities, but you are constantly looking out for the best interest of our students and of our staff. And as a board, we feel like we are the most, how do I put it? The most lucky board that could ever exist because of the caliber of the team that Dr. Zakowski has brought together and has enabled to be leaders within our organization. So know that we appreciate your work very much, that we see you, we respect you, and we're so grateful for you. And that goes for you, Dr. Zakowski, as well.
Even after I interrupted everyone, thank you.
Despite that, yes. Thank you all very much. And thank you, all of the support folks, Michael and your team, for everything that you've accomplished here. It was flawless, so thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. I do want to say I messed up being president for the day. We do have a second public session before we adjourn. So we're opening it up to any matters before the board. It is a public meeting, so we have matters for just the budget. So if anybody has any matters to come before the board on anything aside from the budget, we'll, as part of our perfunctory steps we take. I see none. How about on YouTube? So our second public session open, we're going to close it now because there's no questions on any matter. We always make that distinction. So Ms. Hawk, can you have a motion to close the second public session on any matter before the board? You didn't open it? Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Bush. I told you I messed up. Board presidency, I'm going to give it back to Ms. Gonzalez. But, so now let's go one more time. Do we have to go through the adjournment again, Mr. Bush? No. So there we go.
So we need a first and a second, actually.
Mr. Brooks, motion to adjourn. Second for adjournment? Yes, for Mr. Brooks. Yes, for Mr. Durant Harris. Yes, for Miss James. Thank you, Miss James. Yes, for all affirmative. The board members want to go home. They all said yes, and it's 11:15. We thank everyone. Thank you again. Be safe.